This is Pastor Madelyn, and I'm here with Larry Lipkis, and we're going to have a little chat today. Larry, I think you're our longest serving staff member. Is that correct? When did you join us here at UUCLV?
I think that is correct. I think it was 2009. I think my first full year was not 2009 and 2010, I think. So yeah, it's been about 11 years now.
Okay, so you came just a little bit before Kate then?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, way back.
Way back, yeah. And you've been in the community, of course, a lot longer.
Right, I've been in the community since the 70s. Mid 70s is when I moved to Bethlehem and got involved right away teaching at Moravian College and just being involved with various groups in the community, theater programs. And so, yeah, I know some folks going way back to those eras, people associated with the church.
But you've been leading the music here for about 11 or I have to tell you, Larry, that if you came in 2009, this is now 2021, so that would be 12 years.
It would be 12, right?
So that's an impressive tenure.
A significant chunk of time, yeah. I don't know historically how that compares to other music directors at the church, but it feels fairly substantial to me.
And most of our folks, if they're not in the choir, they'll know you from playing music and leading the choir on Sunday mornings. And since we've been on Zoom, that's been a bit more challenging, but we can still see you playing piano. In fact, you're sitting at your piano right now.
I am indeed. Right. Here's the keyboard.
There's the keyboard. So we get to see you doing that on Sunday mornings. But there's a lot more that goes into your job than just sitting down on Sunday and starting to play. Do you want to tell us a bit about what do you think people don't know about what goes into the work?
Well, I guess the preparation, what has to happen. I mean, my job is really twofold in the sense that I play music for the service and I direct the choir. In the choir, I mean, we, of course, if we talk about what are known as the before times, the pre-pandemic era, that's one element of preparation. And then there's a completely different type of preparation when we were doing virtual recordings. So I guess I could probably start with the before times of the pre-pandemic era, because we will be returning to that, hopefully in the fall. So there, my preparation deals with just preparing the music for the service, and that involves a really strong, close collaboration with the minister or whoever might be leading the service, if it's not the minister. So my job is to support the service, support the meaning of the service in any way I can. So to back up even further, traditionally, towards the beginning of August, I would sit down with the minister over lunch, usually, and plot out the whole year. Just figure out when the choir would be performing in the service, and what might be happening at other dates, and trying to find dates when the beacons would be performing in the service. And generally we have about 7 or 8 per half year, so maybe 14 or 15 beacon services altogether from the middle of September to the middle of June. So I would sit down and say, okay, well, we want music, we want the beacons for the ingathering, the water communion, we'd like them for the animal blessing, we'd like them for Thanksgiving, for Christmas Eve, of course, and then some services in between that may not even have a theme at this point, but we just sort of figure out when would be appropriate. Maybe the beacons could be of service maybe every third Sunday, something along those lines. It could be more, it could be a little less, but maybe total of 14 or 15, maybe 16 per church year. And then in the spring, we look at Martin Luther King Day. We possibly might do something on Valentine's Day, certainly Easter, Mother's Day, that sort of thing, and the flower communion at the end, and then various services in between. So that's where the job really starts, at that meeting in August, when I plot out the whole year. That doesn't mean I have the music all picked out, but I at least know what's coming up ahead. And when I pick music for the beacons, well, I always like to have a little bit of old and a little bit of new. So I like to introduce new and different music that the group hasn't heard. But I think if you do that constantly, it can be a little fatiguing. And people do enjoy singing some of the same tunes year after year, or at least maybe every other year, because there's a familiarity. And of course, people get better at it the more they sing it. So that's a kind of interesting balance. And then in terms of the type of repertory, I'm always open to suggestions, and that can of course come from anyone, including you, including the minister. For example, just thinking about the Christmas Eve service. Now that really entailed a separate meeting. I think we met again just to plot that up, because you had some ambitious plans for lessons and carols, which is something we hadn't done in the past, but I thought it was a nice idea. So we worked, and you I think you came up with that tune, She Was So Young, which I hadn't heard of. And that was something, well, let's do that. You want to go tell it, go tell it on the mountain. I think you had a couple of requests, and we kind of plotted out the whole flow of the service together, which makes, I think that's the way it should be. You know, it's a collaboration. So I don't want to impose my will on either the church, the choir, or you, certainly, but my job is to sort of serve the interest of the minister and the congregation. And I do like taking suggestions from the beacons. So occasionally someone will say, you know, I heard this tune at the GA, or I heard this on, I wonder if we could do this. And I look at it, sometimes we can. And if there's any way we can do it, I would try to include it. So I think, you know, philosophically, I guess I would say that I try to make the music align with the principles, the UU principles, as much as I can. That makes sense. So if we just start with the first one, honoring the inherent worth and dignity of all people, that would be certainly everyone in the congregation, and particularly in the beacons, that everyone has equal worth to the choir. It's not by audition. Anyone who wants to sing can sing. We find a place for them, whether they can read music or not. So that is part of it. And then it also pertains to the music itself. The music, we want to honor the inherent dignity and worth of the music itself. And so that, and we want to be diverse, because diversity is a very important part of the church. It's a welcoming congregation, a welcoming community. We want to welcome all different kinds of music as much as we can. My background, as you know, is in classical music, but I enjoy all manner of folk music, Celtic music, traditional Jewish music is my upbringing, a little bit of jazz, a little bit of pop standards. And what I can't do myself, I think I would encourage, other people to do, guest musicians, or so I would like to be as broad as possible, and I'd like to introduce different languages. I think that's another thing. We don't just want to sing in English. We don't just want to sing the same type of repertory. Exposing the congregation and the choir to different languages is, I think, a very healthy thing, just as we want to be diverse in our population. So I think we're kind of a microcosm of the whole church teachings in some way. That was a long answer to your question.
So Larry, tell me, when you're introducing a new piece to the choir, what kind of work goes into preparation on your part before you can introduce it to the choir?
Okay, well, let's go back again to the before times when the choir is in person.
Mhm.
So I would, first of all, what it depends on what the source is. If it's a printed score, I would possibly buy copies for everyone. I wouldn't want to make sure that I'm not violating copyright laws. Oftentimes I make my own arrangements of pieces. I might find pieces from kind of a collection of UU pieces that I have. It could be some traditional pieces, not under copyright. I often get some pieces from a couple of websites online that are copyright free. And then I might have to do some arranging, because sometimes these are arranged for voices that they're out of the range, or they're too complex. They might have divided parts for the sopranos or the alto. It could be too complex for what we can do in a 3-week period of rehearsal. So I might simplify things. Or in some cases, if it's too simple, I might add a couple of lines. Like if there's a melody, I might want to add some harmony to it. If there's something I think we should do, I'll just add a simple harmony part or a couple of parts so that it flushes things out. So all that does take a little bit of time. I'm pretty conversant with a particular music software program, so I can go fairly quickly, but it really depends. Some people have requested pieces and I really want to honor their request. For example, just recently, We Shall Be Known was a tune that was requested by actually 2 members of the choir. And I thought, okay, that, I don't really know that tune, but they were very enthusiastic. So I went online and I purchased one version, and I found that it was just unusable. It had so many errors in it, pitch errors and rhythmic errors. I thought there's no way I could just bring this to the choir and say, okay, let's do this. It would not work. So I spent quite a bit of time rearranging it, writing it so that it would be readable by the singers. I might put it in a different key, but I would just make it possible. So that is one. Another one is One Voice, another song that we brought in. And again, the rhythm that when I purchased the score, I realized, well, it's too confusing. It would not work. So I had to just rebar it, simplify it, rewrite it. Sometimes the print is just not readable, so I put it on a larger score and try to make things as eye-friendly as possible, large print. I appreciate, as I get older, I appreciate the larger fonts as well as members of the choir. So it does take a little bit of behind the scenes work to get something ready to go for the choir, because we have a limited amount of time when we're together. I don't want to waste a lot of time trying to decipher something and then have to bring it back and say, okay, my fault. Let's just scrap that, or I'll come back with a new edition. Having said that, I do still make tons of mistakes and typos and all that, and everyone in the choir is very, obliging and supportive of that. But we try to soldier through. Basically, I want to present them as complete and clear a copy as I can, and then we work steadily to get it to the place where we can perform it in a service.
So this year's presented a whole new set of challenges.
It did. Well, this year, of course, when we couldn't meet in person, I explored, with your encouragement, ways of having the virtual videos. And so there was a little bit of training on my part that needed to happen. And we did, use helpers because of my time limitations, being still a full-time faculty member at Moravian, I really couldn't take time to do the editing. So we had other people do the actual video editing. But it did mean preparing everything, creating a video that the choir members could watch. And one advantage to this was I didn't always have to just play piano for the accompaniment, because in my computer program, I could create a whole orchestra, or I could create whatever sounds I wanted. And that was actually quite a bit of fun. Again, that takes a little bit of time, but I'm fairly facile at it. So I could have a harp come in for a certain moment. I could have the winds play here. As tranquil streams, for example, which we did recently. So I thought, well, the idea there is merging of two streams, and that, as you pointed out, represents the merging of the two U's, the Unitarians and the Universalists. So I thought, well, let's have one accompaniment be one stream of sound, like, the winds, and then the next verse would have another stream of sounds, which would be the strings. Now, whether anyone notices that or not, that's okay. I just had some fun doing it, but maybe subliminally, someone could pick up on the fact that there were two different streams of sounds that then merge together in the final version when everyone's playing together. So in a sense, so that's something I can do online with my computer program that I really couldn't do just sitting at the piano. So that's one, I guess, silver lining to our whole episode of online performing. The downside, of course, is we can't really do as complex music as we could in person. Rehearsing online is just not very good. And I experimented with some programs called Jamulus and Jamkazam and others, which allow they get rid of the latency or delay that's inherent in Zoom. The problem is it doesn't work with the visuals. So even if everyone is synced up with their audio, my beat would still be behind. So that didn't work, And then if one person is having a problem getting onto this program, or it's not working for them, then they're out of the loop. And that's no fun. And the other thing is it would cost some money. People would have to buy Ethernet cables, headphones if they don't have them. And so I experimented with my students at the college, and the college helpfully provided some equipment. But we decided after this was just too frustrating. And the better thing to do was wait till we're vaccinated and then be together. And sometimes we rehearsed outside. And so with the beacons, we obviously, it was not practical to rehearse together. So I gave that up, and I just said, let's just do it with everyone singing individually into a mic. And I would prepare them, and I would create a video of me conducting. I would prepare the scores and sound files for every single part, so that, which I could do very easily if we're in person. I just play the line, but I would just create, so the altos had their own part to listen to practice. The tenors had their own. So they all had that in a Dropbox folder so they could access everything. And then we would have a record to this video, and they would have that on. They'd have the sheet music in front of them or the lyrics. And then they would sing into a mic. And then that would be recorded on whatever device they wanted. And it could be a QuickTime on the computer or whatever they had on their device or iPad, their phone. And then it would be merged together by our editor. And then that would create the video that you would see on Sundays. It's a big process, and it's not that satisfying for people to do, honestly, because people don't join a choir to sing by themselves into a microphone. People join a choir to be with other people, and they like the support of other voices around them. And so I think everyone is really looking forward to singing together again and doing more interesting, more challenging music, which we're used to doing from times past. So while it has been fun at some level, I think everyone's ready to get back to the real world of singing together as a group.
Thank you. Yeah. Now, things seem to be looking up with the pandemic, but we're also told that singing is one of the last things we should be adding back in.
Right.
So as we proceed in a cautiously optimistic way, what are you looking forward to in the fall, and how do you see things, moving ahead perhaps a little differently? What do you think will be holding rehearsals with masks, more distance? What do you think will change? What do you think will be like?
It's a very timely topic, and even just yesterday, I got some new information. The various organizations weigh in on this. There's the CDC, there's the ACDA, the American Choral Directors Association, which has its own guidelines based on the CDC. Other people have different guidelines, and it's a moving target because things are changing all the time. So what I did with my students, we did meet together. Everyone had been vaccinated, which was fortunate because they are young people, but they had been vaccinated. But we still sang with masks, and we did our concert masked, and people were social distanced. And so, but we did a lot of rehearsing outside before that, just because that's a little better for ventilation. And there are some specifications about being super careful when you are singing, because as you pointed out, you can expel, more droplets, more infected droplets when you're singing than when you're just speaking. So we're hoping that by fall, everyone will be fully vaccinated if they aren't already, and that we will start singing, at a distance, and we'll just see what the current guidelines are as far as masks go. Singing with masks is something you have to get used to, but the sound was okay, especially if you're mic'd. But I think in a large space, it's not quite as good, and the diction gets a little bit muffled. And singers are used to kind of looking at each other's mouths, so when it's covered by a mask, you're kind of reading people's eyebrows rather than their lips. So I'm hoping we can be to the point where people are comfortable singing together without masks. But I think we just have to see where we're at in the fall. I think the first step is to get together, be together, and we're obviously looking for a place to do it. And weather permitting, we can do a lot of rehearsing outside, but we can't count on that. The other thing is we tend to rehearse, our regular rehearsal time was 7:15 to 8:45. If we're going to be rehearsing outside, we need light. So we have to make sure we have to do it. Maybe we might move it up a little bit earlier just so we can take advantage of the light. And we might plan something, but then it's very windy or it rains or something. So we have to have a backup indoor place. So there are lots of options, lots of question marks at this point, but I think one way or the other, I think we'll be able to rehearse together starting at the end of August. And that's the goal.
Great. That's really exciting. Larry, is there anything that you wish our congregation knew about you or your position that you think people don't know?
Well, I think because I've been here a while, I think a lot of them know me. I think a lot of people know that I'm still a professor of music. They know what some of my interests are outside of music, and what my interests are within the world of music as well. I do enjoy, when we have real coffee hours or even the virtual ones, when I can, I stay for those because that's the time people get, you can get to know somebody more than just, seeing me as a figure. Occasionally, I do like to speak to the congregation. I know you asked me some time ago whether I would be interested in leading a service, and I certainly would be, but I mentioned I would prefer to do that one in person. But I have, on occasion, I've been asked to speak at a Thanksgiving Day service on a couple of occasions, or just give comments about something. When I've played music for a funeral service of a member, I might speak at that point about my memories of working with that particular person, if I do have some. So there are occasions when we have, up until the pandemic, we had a second Sunday concert series at the church. That's obviously up in the air. It's suspended now because we don't have a piano, we don't have a space, and we have to see what will happen when, if that does come back, and if it does, how it will come back. But that was another opportunity for people to, get to see me in a somewhat different role.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
If someone's interested, if someone hasn't been part of the choir before and is interested in exploring that option and maybe doesn't have a lot of experience singing, what do you think that person ought to do?
Well, I really encourage everyone who is interested to come experience the choir. And we've had some people during the pandemic years who didn't really know what the choir was like. And of course, that's a very different experience, singing suddenly thrown in the choir, which is not really a choir, but a group of people singing into microphones. But in the world when we will be together, I would just have people come to a rehearsal and meet everyone. It's a very, it's a wonderful group of folks in the choir. I mean, the whole congregation is filled with great and lovely people, and the Beacons, many of them have been in the choir predating my time here, and going back maybe 20 years or more, 30 years. So they're very welcoming. Everybody wants to see the choir grow. We always like to have new members, young and old. So I would just encourage people to come, and maybe if they want to just sit in without singing and listen, follow along, sing if they would like. And then if they need a little extra help, I do make even in the pre-pandemic years, I would make recordings to help people learn their parts, but I can meet with people individually and help them with their parts. And some people have backgrounds in music. They sang in their college choir or they sang in the community choir. Others didn't and may not be able to read music, but they still enjoy it. They like to sing. They sing in the shower. They think they can contribute. If they think they can contribute, they should be able to contribute. Because again, we want to be open. We're not, it's not by audition, but I do like to hear people sing by themselves. I can place them and maybe help figure out where they belong in the choir. So I would just say, if you're intrigued, if you want to, if that's your way of contributing to the church, we would welcome you with open arms, because I think the more, the more the merrier. And again, I work with whatever voices, whatever skill levels we have to create a sound which, I think is going to be good. And I pick music that's going to be appropriate to where we are at that time vocally.
Well, thank you, Larry. It's been a pleasure talking with you today. It continues to be a pleasure to work with you and to plan out worship.
Ditto.
Forward to more of that in the future.
Yes, I look forward to our breakfast or lunch in August, and then another one maybe at the end of in November, where we can plot out the Christmas service, Christmas Eve.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure.